Hello and welcome to the Sex Within Marriage podcast. My name is JD and I blog over at uncoveringintimacy.com. And today we're going to talk about what feeling naughty is, which seems oddly suited for the Christmas season. I got a great question in our anonymous questions from last month that I started writing an answer to, and it just got so long that it seemed worthy of its own post. So here's the question that they sent in. They said, "Hey Jay, just a general question. What is the feeling of feeling naughty?" And I guess there's other questions attached. Is it sin? Are we describing something that's simply different as naughty, as maybe we don't have another reference point in our vocabulary? There's no great issue in our marriage or anything around the topic, just curious about your thoughts. But as a little context that got me thinking, my wife and I had a night in a hotel recently to celebrate our anniversary, which was actually 6 months ago, better late than never. As a treat and for fun, I bought her some lingerie that had a hole in the crotch area. It was very sexy and she loved them, and we made love while she wore them. To which she exclaimed, "It feels so naughty," which I had to agree with, but I'd probably describe it more like lots of fun, where whether naughtiness was an element or not. Thanks for your good work. Alright, so why is it called feeling naughty? First off, let's talk about the term naughty itself. Why do we call it feeling naughty? I think it's a holdover from an era when people believed that anything sexual was sinful, that sex was a necessary evil mitigated only by procreation. In fact, did you know that at one point the church had basically outlawed having sex except for 40 days out of the year? And even of those 40 days, pregnancy had to be a possibility or else it was considered too sinful without any mitigating factors. Now, thankfully we've managed to reform that way of thinking. However, this idea still somewhat pervades. As well, unfortunately, during our formative years, we often get implicitly taught that sex is sinful, wrong, and shameful because in the context that we're in at that time, it is sinful, wrong, and shameful. And, if you have sex in your formative years, it's sinful, wrong, and shameful. Apart from abuse, of course, in which case someone else is doing something that's sinful, wrong, and shameful. But either way, you get the message, this is bad. And I think we need to be very careful about how we teach our children about sex. We need to stop saying don't and start saying wait. We have to be clear that in the proper context, it's not only not wrong, it's actually right and good. So many of us grow up with this general sense that sex is wrong. But when we say something is naughty, we tend to mean a specific feeling. And what generates that feeling shifts over time, and that's because of what exactly we mean when we say something is naughty. So what does that feeling naughty mean? Because that feeling is not just being aroused. It's excitement and arousal mixed with the feeling of breaking a taboo and engaging in something adventurous. And I think those last two parts are important. They're what give that naughty feeling that we don't really have another name for. It's that mix of dopamine and adrenaline that makes it more than just erotic. And the best word I found that actually describes that particular feeling is transgressive. In other words, it's exciting because it breaks a cultural norm in a way that we're not used to. It transgresses against a societal construct of polite behavior. And that's why some things are naughty in some situations and not others, because context matters for social norms and repetition matters for our respect for them. For example, sex before marriage, particularly for Christians, feels really naughty because you've broken a rule. No sex before marriage. In this case, the rule isn't constructed by society, but we've adopted it as a societal norm, so it has the same effect. And when you break it, it's exciting and adventurous. It's transgressive. Once you get married, though, it loses that feeling. It's no longer new and exciting, especially if you've been having sex for a while. Plus, now you're married, and so you aren't breaking any rules. That sense of naughtiness is gone. And sadly, this devastates a lot of marriages because when one spouse or the other doesn't get that same feeling, sometimes they struggle to reach the same level of arousal. In short, sex becomes boring for them because it's now allowed. But there are other ways to get that feeling. For example, sex outdoors feels naughty for most because we've been socially conditioned to believe that sex should happen in bed. So if you have sex in a field for the first time, it may feel transgressive because you've done something that quote unquote shouldn't be done. But if you make a habit of doing it, then you begin to realize that there's no reason for it to be taboo. And so then while it's still fun, it may lose that feeling of naughtiness. So what feels naughty isn't static. It can change, it can go away, it can come back. Sex with the lights on might feel naughty for some, but if you always have sex with the lights on, then sex in the dark feels a bit naughty. With all these pieces, that's why in the reader's question, sex with your underwear on might feel naughty because it's not something that you do. And so it feels wrong, but in a good way. Because there is this idea that underwear sort of protects your genitals. So to intentionally wear underwear that gives access to them is taboo. Add to that the idea that women are supposed to be the passive gender when it comes to sex societally, and not look forward to it or make it happen or initiate or otherwise show a desire for it, then crotchless panties violate that entire mindset. In short, she's checking a lot of taboo boxes with a simple choice in clothing. So then, is it wrong to feel naughty? Because all this together presents a bit of a problem, because in order for you to get that feeling, you have to first be taught that what you're doing is wrong in some way, but then not believe it is so that you can go ahead and experience it. And that feeling is, well, it's really exciting. That's why people like things like our Sexploration list in our store, because it's full of activities that are taboo, but not morally wrong. As such, many of them straddle that line between feeling like it's naughty, but believing that it's okay to break a given rule, because while many of the activities in it break cultural norms, they don't break biblical principles. So all that to say, no, I don't think the feeling necessarily means something is sinful. It can be, because some social norms are built on moral principles, but others are just holdovers from bad theology, philosophy, or psychology, but it's certainly not always the case. So I think if your wife enjoys feeling naughty and you understand what that means and you're sure you're breaking a cultural norm and not a biblical principle, then go for it. Have fun. Enjoy the feelings. And if anyone else is listening and they want to experience that kind of sense and they like that and it helps them, then yeah, check out some of the stuff in our store, because we tend to break a lot of those kind of cultural taboos, especially Christian ones, without breaking biblical principles. That's kind of my goal in a lot of them. So there are things like our Sexploration list that I mentioned, our sexy coupons, which are great around Christmas time, our introduction to dirty talking, which dirty is another, basically the same kind of word, has the same kind of feeling to it. And if you've been following us on Instagram, then you've seen some of our intimacy advent calendar as well, which has some of those elements to it too. And that's it for today. I know it's a short one. I am working on the questions that we got in November, but there are lots of them, so it might have to come out in a two-parter because, well, it was just a lot of questions. So stay tuned for that.